Good morning, everybody. Apologies for the lack of Facebook Live this week due to technical difficulties. I wasn't able to run it. So let me introduce myself. My name is Deborah Byrne from Deborah Byrne Psychology Services, known across social media as Dbpsychology. And this week I'm going to talk about temper tantrums in toddlers. Now, this is different than something you might find in an autistic child. They're referred to as meltdowns, but it is important to be mindful that autism can start to display itself in that early 1 to 3 year olds is what I'm going to be talking about. So that is something that as a parent you need to be aware of and be mindful of as your child grows. So temper tantrums. So usually temper tantrums are because the child is frustrated. The child is frustrated and cannot communicate with you what they want. We're talking about a 1 to 3 age group. So the 1 to 3 year olds, they can, they're only learning to communicate. They're only learning to talk. They're also only learning to grow into their own bodies. So it can be a time of frustration for them because they can't do everything they feel they should be able to do. I think any parent that knows that toddler age, they'll know, I do, me do, or, you'll get this, kind of, I want to do it type of attitude from them. I don't want to do it by myself. And that's only natural. You'll also see something similar in teens. Hopefully they won't be throwing temper tantrums, but you'll get that same level of frustration. They'll want to be more grown up than they actually are, and they'll want to be pushing against you and becoming more independent. And that is what the toddler is trying to do too. They're trying to go from being a baby and to be so dependent on you to being bigger and, being able to become a little bit more independent. And, they're pushing against you as a parent. So with that in mind, it can be very frightening. The first time you see it, the first few times you see it, it can be very frightening to see this, what seems to be a very out of control, little tiny individual throwing this strop, and they seem totally out of control. And the key to dealing with all of this is to remain calm. Yes, you may get frightened, but if you can remain calm, you're going to do a hell of a lot better for yourself, but also for your child in helping them to prevent them in the future. So what causes these temper tantrums? Basically, I've listed out a whole pile of things that can cause them, but if they're as it's related to communication and being frustrated, you can just imagine that it's they're tired, they're hungry, they're feeling lonely, they're feeling angry. Anything there, even as adults, we feel like that. I'm sure you've heard the term hangry. It's people that are hungry and angry at this. They get angry when they get hungry. Well, equally, adults, we get angry and we get frustrated and we get, our tempers are a little bit more frayed more easily when we are tired and feeling lonely and hungry and all that sort of thing. We get the same thing. So, then the next ways that can cause it is, I can't do it. They feel frustrated with themselves because they can't do what they feel they should be able to do. And the obvious one then is they're unable to communicate with you because they just don't have the language skills yet to be able to communicate with you, or they don't have the language skills yet to be able to understand what you're trying to get them to do. A lot of times parents can put their children under a little bit of pressure, and maybe they're pushing them to do it quicker than the child is able to do it. Children of that age grow at different levels. So just because somebody else can do it doesn't mean that your child can do it, and that's okay. That is okay. They will catch up. We all catch up. Attention, that's another reason they can do it, is because they want your attention. They feel, you haven't been giving them enough attention. Maybe you're talking to somebody, maybe you're on the phone. That's the classic one. You're on the phone, you're talking to somebody else. You're outside, you're going around the supermarket or something. And they'll throw the tantrum. They'll throw a wobbly. throw, it might be a big tantrum, but it might be just a small thing. They throw a wobbly. You're not giving them enough attention. Another reason they can do it is because somebody has died, either a pet in the family or a family member, somebody that they were close to, or they've picked up that, maybe you lost somebody, a friend or family member, and you're upset, and they're picking up on that, and they don't know why, they don't understand grieving and grieving process. And this is their way of expressing, their grief maybe, or they're picking up on your upset or your stress. So if you're very stressed in work, they'll pick up on it, and then they may decide this is how they communicate. Well, I'm picking up you're stressed and I'm getting stressed, so I'm going to throw a tantrum. And this is, one way they do it. They communicate this. A change in their routine, it can be upsetting, very upsetting for a child. So change in nursery personnel, again, change in the routine maybe with you will be cause them upset, maybe frustration, and therefore that can cause the tantrums to start or kick off in the first place. So the whole thing about the cause is, as I said with teens, you need to be a little bit of a detective with children. Think about if you can remain calm and survive the temper tantrum. If you can talk to them and see what the cause is, or if you can just sit and think when they've gone to bed, maybe think over, well, did something happen that day or something been happening recently that could have kicked this off? So being a detective is very important with regards to this. Now, as I said, this age group I'm talking about is the 1 to 3 year old age, and a number of conditions, a number of disability and things like that can, of course, manifest at this stage or become more apparent at this stage. So what I would say to you is, if it continues beyond the age of 4, you need to get help. But the one thing you always have to do as a parent is trust your own gut instinct. And if you're not happy with the first response you get when you ask for help, always go back and ask for, help again. Go back and look for a second opinion. Now, in terms of prevention, as I said, the key to prevention will be your detective work. The next thing you can do, and I've listed down a whole load of things on the blog, and you can check it out. It's at www.dbpsychologyservices.com. You can check it all out and see what the different things I've listed there. But the main thing would be to stick to a routine. So stick to your routine as much as possible. Things happen, and things change, something unexpected happens, and there is a change in routine. You must explain to the child as soon as possible then why the routine changed. You have to be talking to them. You wouldn't expect an adult or a teenager to just go along because something happened, and you would explain to them. You would actually say to them, something happened in work and Dad had to collect you from nursery instead of Mummy. Things like that, you must explain to them in their terms as quickly as possible if there is a change in routine, why it's happening, and what's going to happen. If you know in advance what's going to happen, then explain to them. And a one-off explanation with a toddler isn't good enough. You might have to repeat yourself like a little broken record over and over and over again. This is happening, this is why it's happening, and do it over and over again. But if you can stick to, a regular routine, so a regular bedtime, regular meals, regular, if they go to nursery, then, try and hand them off to the same person. Things like that helps. It really does help them. And as I said before, set reasonable expectations. Just because another child can do something before your child can, doesn't mean your child is ready. Every child will do, take their steps, the next step in their development at their own pace. But always, as I said, trust your own gut instinct with regard to that. So if you think there's something wrong, do go and seek help from your GP. But do, set a reasonable expectation. The next stage we tend not to set reasonable expectations with, of course, is the teens. So again, this kind of thing, I'm talking about prevention here with toddlers, but it does work with teens as well. Set reasonable expectation as to what they can and cannot do. Preparation is the key. That would be my next point. Preparation is the key in terms of if there's a change or there's going to be a change in routine. So if you're going on holidays, a big build up to the holiday, you know, you need to be telling them weeks in advance, we're going on holiday. Have you got your favourite teddy packed? Have you got, you know, we're going to pack the teddy. We're going to bring our clothes and help them, you know, let them help you pick the clothes. Things like that. Get a little routine going about preparing them to go on the holiday. Or if you're going on a long car journey, again, preparation is the key. Have you got, make sure you don't leave the, you know, if they've got what we called in our house a blankety, which was a blanket that is still around today. And, you know, they had to bring that everywhere with them. And we had, you know, the favourite toy. Things like that, they had to go everywhere with us, even in the long car journeys was important. But also having things that they can play with in the car. In, you know, to think about how you're going to keep them occupied in the car while you're travelling. And, you know, explain all this to them. Well, we're going to have our favourite, maybe they have Postman Pat or whoever it is, but Bob the Builder or whoever it is these days that they all watch. You know, have the favourite shows to watch in the back of the car, whatever it is. Think about it and explain it all out to them and prepare them really well for this change to happen. If you're moving house, if you're, you know, maybe they go visit the house before you move in and they're shown their new bedroom, things like that. Think about, you know, what you need to do to prepare them as well as you can in advance of something happening, a change in routine. Now, the next thing to do is to explain the rules and also be consistent with the rules. So this is the rules of the house and the rules of nursery and things like that if they're in nursery. Or daycare of some sort. If they don't understand the rule, how can they follow it? If nobody sat them down and explained to them that this is the rule and this is why we have the rule and this is the consequence of you not following the rule, nobody, you know, how would you feel? You know, think about it. How would you feel if you suddenly arrived into work and there was a certain rule and you didn't follow it and then you got fired? Well, you'd be pretty upset. So think about this toddler requires the rules. They require consistency with the rules and they require the rules to be explained to them, not once, but all the time. They keep needing, you know, need explanation over and over again. They've got small brains. They're developing very quickly, but they need to be told over and over again, no, you can't do that. You know, yes, you can do that, and praise them for when they do the good thing, okay? Now, the last thing I'll talk about this morning is being consistent with your response to a tantrum. This is highly important. Don't stop what you're doing if they're having a tantrum. Ignore them. And you're going to find this very hard, but you ignore them. And the only time you intervene is if they're going to be in danger. If they're going to be a danger to themselves or to others. Or the environment is too dangerous for them to throw a tantrum in. And basically let them do it and continue to do whatever you were doing before they threw the tantrum. When they have calmed down, then you comfort them and you ask them to explain to you what's going on, what's happened. And if they can, you know, or if you have figured out what has happened, what has triggered, if you've done this detective work and you know what is going on with them, then you can talk to them about it. But the main thing is not to use bribes and don't give in to them, because you're setting them up for a downfall later on in life. And you're setting yourself up for a very rough ride in terms of later on when they get older and they're teens and even older and they're throwing a tantrum, or, you know, and teens will do that because you're not giving in to them, because you're not buying them whatever it is they want. So be consistent with how you treat this tantrum. By all means, communicate with them afterwards and comfort them after. It's very, very important that you comfort them and you tell them you love them, but that throwing a tantrum is not acceptable, that you understand that they're frustrated and that you want to help them. And if they can tell you what it is, you want mummy or daddy, whoever it is that's taking, you know, whoever is dealing with the child, tells them, I'll help you here. I will help you. We'll do it together. We will do it together. We'll figure it out together. But always, always be consistent and no bribery and no giving in. So don't just hand them a packet of sweets or something. If they're having a tantrum, and just to shut them up, hand them a packet of sweets. No. So I'll leave it there this morning, and thank you all for listening. And I will be, hopefully I will be on Facebook next week, but we never know what's going to happen with things, and they don't work out. They don't always work out as we planned. So good morning and have a great week. Thank you for listening.